Okay, hello, welcome back. YouTube video 4 in Radiance. I feel like I'm slowly getting the hang of this here. So today we are going to actually go through the fourth release. Again, here's the order of releases from Radiance, starting with Working Class Goes to Heaven, Big Time Gambling Boss, Miami Blues, and now A Woman Kills, 1968 film from Jean-Denis Bonan. Sorry for any French speakers for the way I'm sure butchered that. He's a super interesting character, which we're going to dive into. Tunisian-born French film director, back when French was running Tunisia or colonizing Tunisia. Not a lot of films in this director's filmography, a lot of shorts, a lot of TV, but we'll get into all that in just a moment. Want to quickly point, typical like, subscribe, please, all those things. Zach from the podcast has just started a series called 2 Minute Reviews, which is pretty fun. He did Evil Dead Rise, was the first one. Shows his, he's kind of an editing whiz, the exact opposite of me that just turns the camera on and talks for 15 minutes. He's got quite good editing chops, and so he shows his skills there. Plus, always reviews newer films, so that's kind of a fun addition. I think he'll be putting those out with some regularity. But yeah, so he's just started that. Obviously, Adam has a few videos as well, and this is now the fourth one in this series, which is going through Radiance Films. So if you've been watching so far, thank you. I introduced a structure of sorts last time. So I'm going to start off with release number, which said fourth release from them. This is Spine number 8. I don't think it's super easy to see that. Spine number 8. And they, typical for Radiance Films, wonderful edition, wonderful release. They always have this piece that slides out here, this little insert that slides out, which lists the special features, and it has the rating symbol on it, so they don't have to put it on the case itself. They always have really nice images as well on the front and back. So in this particular case, you can see it's not custom artwork necessarily, or it looks a little bit different from some of their releases, but this matches the film very well. So this is the front, and then this is the original artwork that they included in the reverse. So you can see that. More of a traditional slip that has all the release and extras information over there. So this is a pretty wild movie from a very interesting director, which I'll get into shortly. One thing I didn't call out last video, sorry, I'm just remembering. The disc matches the insert color again, so they really think through every single facet of the release in Radiance, which is great. This is a 2K restoration. This was a film that was truly lost for a while, and I'll get into that in just a moment, but it's a really cool film that he found. There's an audio commentary by Kat Ellinger and Virginie Selavi. I listened to about an hour of that commentary. It's awesome. The person that they got on, this Virginie, she's very knowledgeable, both about the director Bonan as well as kind of the broader idea of what was going on at the time in France in the cinema. So really good special feature. In addition, there's a documentary about a lot of the short films that was either banned from Bonan or cursed in some way. He was a kind of a protest filmmaker, and came out in a time when films were getting banned, and so he was banned for a few years, or some of his films were banned, excuse me. There's a large series of short films, which is awesome. There's The Short Life of Monsieur le Monsieur. There's A Crime of Love. There's The Sadness of the Anthropophagy, this is one of the ones that was banned for him. And Crazy Matthew, A Season with Mankind, and then in addition to new subtitling work and new artwork, which we just looked at by Marco Phantom, there's also this huge booklet. Does he mention the pages? He doesn't mention the pages. But it's a huge booklet. This is a 49, 50, 51 page booklet here. And a lot of that is probably just the essays ran longer than some of the other releases, but honestly there's so many interesting behind the scenes details here. Typical fashion for Fran. These are not, covered in pictures. There's a lot of text in these pages. Really good essays written. So yeah, wonderful release. Super happy that Fran is doing what he does. Now, a little bit about the film and the background. So I think I can't really, I want to paint the context for 1968 quickly. So 1968 was an amazing year for cinema. I could go through the top 50 movies and they're all well known, but just the top few here. So 2001, Space Odyssey from Kubrick. There's Rosemary's Baby, Once Upon a Time in the West, Night of the Living Dead, Hour of the Wolf from Bergman, Faces from Cassavetes, Lindsay Anderson's If, Pasolini with Diorama, Truffaut has a movie, Stolen Kisses, Planet of the Apes, the Bullet was that year, Salesman, the Males documentary, The Alphabet came out, Lynch's Alphabet, Cornetto came out that year, Memories of Underdevelopment came out that year, The Swimmer from Frank Perry, Fando and Liz, The World was introduced to Jodorowsky in a big way. I mean, on and on. Death by Hanging, The Odd Couple, The Great Silence, The Bride Wore Black, which is going to be another Radiance release soon. Truly just a crazy year for cinema. Again, this is the first 25, but I could go 25 more. They're all household names. So Bonan at this time had released some films. One of the short films, Sadness of the Anthropophagy, was the first, let's say, 2 or 3 minutes of that short was people in a restaurant eating feces and enjoying it and like ordering off a menu, and it was meant to be sort of comical, but it was pretty gross, and so it was banned. And so he was developing a bit of a reputation for being this protest filmmaker, and then right at the same time he directed, or right after that, this project A Woman Kills came out, and the producers of this were kind of well-known producers that produced a lot of the French New Wave, but they didn't know what to do with this movie, how to really categorize it. It's interesting that Jodorowsky came out this year in a big way. Pasolini started to get momentum with the movie like Teorama, like this was the beginning of a really good run for him. Like there's, so there was probably, I think if he'd come out 10 years later with A Woman Kills, it probably would have been much more accepted and understood, and they would have known how to market it, and because they would have all had similar projects, or at least crazier projects that had been shown to be commercially viable. But at this time that wasn't known, and they didn't have that precedent, so they weren't sure what to do, and it essentially got no release, or a very limited release. And so it was known in circles, and Bonan was certainly known in circles. He ran with a lot of the left kind of movements, a lot of the protest movements. He was right in the middle politically. Went on to have a career in TV, and made some other short films. So was working, but probably, is not really, when you hear of the French New Wave directors, or the great French directors of the 60s, Jean-Denis Bonan does not come up as much as, rarely ever. Hopefully this changes with this release. It's really a mix of genres. So this one is, I want to show you some influences. I pulled a bunch of movies down because it's hard to sort of pick one film that it's comparable to. If you imagine films like Shoot the Piano Player, right? These sort of well-known French films, French New Wave films, it shares a lot with that in the way maybe it's very kind of breezy and cuts between scenes very casually, and I think it shares a lot in common maybe in the structure as some of these films, but the content is not at all similar. This is where Bonan really goes off and does some interesting things. I mean, the premise of the movie, I guess I should say that, it's a serial killer who's a woman, dies, and or is executed, and on the back of that there's some copycat killings. So it raises some questions with the police. Did they get the wrong person? And they're pretty sure they didn't, or who's the copycat? And so the police detective is a woman, and this female police detective goes out and tries to solve this crime. She gets connected with a gentleman who was formerly connected with the serial killer, in sort of a roundabout way, and as the film goes on, essentially it's this sort of game where the detective is always one step behind the killer, and the killer keeps killing, and so when it's finally revealed who it is, it's a pretty big surprise. It's been compared to films like Psycho, or some other films where there's a big sort of twist at the end around who the killer is, and their relationship with, let's say, the trans community. And so, it's not exactly the same as a Psycho, but there's certainly some similarities there. I'll try not to spoil it too much because it's worth. I mean, it's an interesting ending. The only reason I would say I won't go into spoilers, but I might be able to, is it's not a traditional sort of linear film. Like, it's a very non-linear movie. In the way that it's edited very frenetically, almost like jump cuts, and it goes between scenes, and there's a lot that's left on the audience to figure out what's going on and start making connections between characters, and the director Bonan has a lot of trust in the audience, which is rewarding. I like those kind of movies, especially when they're done well, and this is one that was done very well. So that's the structure of the film. It's done in terms of the way it's edited and kind of feels, just the flow of it. I think it fits very well in with that pacing of a French New Wave film. But content-wise, right, if you think about a director who was maybe making John Waters type shorts, right? I mean, literally having people eating feces in some of his earlier films. So the director likes to put in dark humor. Bonan likes to mix in sort of this very dark humor. He likes to explore the other side of maybe kinks and fetishes, and those are not the feces, but other kinks and fetishes are certainly woven into the plot here in a very casual way that feels like it has some influence from John Waters, or at least similar mind. You certainly can't talk about this without talking about Buñuel. This is the first one I kind of pulled down, but I mean, between this or Discreet Charm, I think there's certain elements of surrealism that come into play. It could even be something like a Daisies. Probably, Daisies has that nice balance of, kind of feels like a French New Wave, but is something fully unique, and has a lot of humor in it. I think that there's elements of this that feel like that type of film as well, and even certain pieces that sort of, to me, match the humor of like a Peter Greenway, right? So if you think about The Falls, H is for House, Dear Phone, some of these early shorts and early films from Peter Greenway, there's a lot of humor mixed in at times. Some of them are just straight comedies like The Falls. Some of them are, humor's kind of mixed in, but it feels to me like a mix of all of these, which, it's sort of hard to imagine all of these coming into one film. I was thinking long and hard if there's any film that I could say it felt the most close to. There really wasn't, but this one, The Unknown Man of Shandagore, that Deaf Crocodile put out, this one to me, it felt somewhat similar. I think, I could see this being a very similar type of movie to that. So if you haven't seen Unknown Man of Shandagore, it's another one of these where it certainly feels like it could be inspired by the French New Wave. It probably was, but was fully something on its own. I would say, whereas Shandagore is very playful, I would say this is playful at times, but explores some darker subject matters and is not meant to be quite as light, but it's still it's comparable to that for me, in the way that there's two directors that seem heavily influenced again by the French New Wave, but are just really doing their own thing. I liked it a lot. I all these directors and films that I pulled up, I like this. I like the mix of surrealism. I like when people are playing with genre. I enjoy it. This, to me, I don't know if I don't really want to do like a ranking of Radiance films. They're all very different. It's tough to beat how much I liked Miami Blues. I know Welcome to the Dollhouse is going to be probably number one for me when I see it again. But this is, it's close behind. I think it's a film that for sure would reward a second watch, and at a first pass, I'd say I liked it a lot. So the other films I just happen to really love, especially I think this, you know what it is. This is, I liked it more than Big Time Gambling Boss, if y'all saw that, and it was a little bit below Working Class Goes to Heaven. It was kind of right in that range for me. But yeah, let me know if you see it. I'd be really curious to hear what you think. And as far as what's next, I'll be doing Welcome to the Dollhouse. And I'm debating, I've been running a long time series on Reddit that's just basically going through different boutique Blu-ray labels. I'm currently doing 88 Films US and trying to do a write-up once a week on those releases. I might make a YouTube series out of those. I have to see. I think that's the other idea that I'm kind of playing around with. But let me know what you think. Let me know if this is boring or if it's too long. I could probably cut this more time off if needed. But otherwise, I'll kind of keep this format. And most importantly, if you see the movies, let me know. I love talking about these. Let me know what I missed. Okay, thanks. See y'all.